What's going on? It's your boy DameSmiff. We out here with another episode of Musician Talks with DameSmiff, and today we're gonna go over the music charts and the history of the music charts and how to actually understand a little bit more of the music charts. Because I've been looking on YouTube and I don't really see people explaining the music charts as far as its history, its breakdown of what it is and how it works and things like that. A lot of people explain like who was charting, who was the best in certain decades and certain times. I personally don't care that somebody got on the charts back in the 80s. Like, I don't care. So, what we're going to kind of deep dive into today is more so what are music charts in the United States? What have they been, and what are they to us as far as musicians and artists today? So if you're interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button and also make sure you hit the subscribe button. The like button lets people know this is a dope conversation. Subscribe button, make sure you catch all my streams and content that comes out. So when you think of charts, what's the first thing you think of? Or you think of something like, I don't know, the best song? Do you think of the most popular song? Do you think of the I guess you can say most valued song in a way? Like, it may not be the most popular, but maybe it's the highest earning song in a way. How do you think of the charts, right? Well, coming up as a young musician, a lot of what I thought about the charts was more so the, I guess you can say, objective best of the time. That's how I looked at it. So it would be like highest earning plus popularity plus technicality or the approach of whatever genre it belongs to, right? That's how I usually viewed it, right? So we're going to look at a little bit of the timeline of it, and we're going to see how it actually stands up or what it actually represents, right? So in 1913 through the 1930s, we have the sheet music era. So before playback technology became widespread, Billboard, which is the company today that we all recognize to run the music charts, tracked music popularity by sheet music sales. So how many of you can see already why that's a bit problematic, right? If you're just selling music for school, if you're selling music just because you want to learn and things like that, it doesn't necessarily mean the song is good, doesn't necessarily mean you like the song, right? And so it says that a song's success was determined by how many families bought the notation to play on home pianos. And so you guys remember that I always bring up how we sold pianos back in the day. The way you had to do it was you sold the lifestyle of having or owning a piano. So that would mean you needed a piano room. You also needed to know how to play the piano and understand the piano and its role in music, right? So for a lot of people, understanding that meant you would also then have to invest in sheet music to make the piano play, right? Unless you had good money, then you can get an automated piano. But that was pretty much how they determined, okay, this song is the most valuable, or I guess you can say tops the charts because it's selling the most, right? Come 1936 through 1957, jukeboxes and radio became the big thing. So in 1936, Billboard published its first record ranking based on jukebox plays. By the 1940s, separate charts existed for radio play, retail sales, like I'm sure CDs, well, not CDs at this time, but records at this time, and jukebox plays. So back then they had like different size vinyls. You would get vinyls for like just one song. Sometimes they'll have the whole album on it and things like that. So there were different ways you could enjoy music. And then of course, come wartime, how sales probably went up or down depending on, what songs were popular, was probably highly determined by how the song was manufactured. So come 1958, the launch of the Hot 100. So that actually is coming up soon, the anniversary of that. But that was in August 4th, 1958. Billboard combined radio airplay, retail sales, and jukebox activity into a single unified singles ranking, the Hot 100. The first number one song on this unified chart was Poor Little Fool by Ricky Nelson. The SoundScan revolution happened in March 1991. So there was a long time where Billboard was kind of just running the charts And it seemed to be just kind of like the industry standard at the time, right? But then it says charts transition from self-reported store surveys to Nielsen SoundScan. And I believe Nielsen SoundScan was where they would kind of just study the programming that they would have on TV and radio and things like that. And depending on what you watched on the box, the Nielsen boxes that they sent out to households would determine a lot of different data points for them to try to figure out what was working, what wasn't working, what was valuable, what wasn't valuable. But the Nielsen SoundScan, which reads barcode point of sale data at checkouts, was an accurate point of sale tracking that revealed that hip hop, country, and heavy metal sold far more units than manual reports previously indicated. So there was probably an instance where record labels were probably inflating numbers, stores were probably inflating sales, there were probably overcharges, probably undercharges, people underselling to get more product and things like that. So now that we have the Nielsen SoundScan, it brought in a lot more accuracy. But do you see how, just to take a sidestep, how technology helped advance a lot more accuracy? But do you see how that could be a bit of a stir up for people during that time? Similar to how AI is bringing a lot more accuracy to the product you make in music, is bringing more accuracy in how you do business today and things like that. And it's starting to shake up how people in general do business, because they don't have this level of, I guess you can say, scrutiny when it comes to their conducting of business. But moving on to digital downloads and streaming integration, 2005 and 2013, Billboard added paid digital downloads like iTunes to the Hot 100 in 2005. Streaming data was introduced in 2007, and YouTube video views were factored into overall chart calculations starting in 2013. So it was actually not too long ago. So the thing now we're looking at is records, CDs, possibly maybe even ringtones. You're looking at things like YouTube views, streams on various sites. I think now TikToks are probably going to be considered. There's a whole bunch of different things that are being calculated as value in terms of music. So it really does beg the question of, do we all even believe this and agree with this? Because, like the dollar or anything, if we don't trust this, then a lot of what we are banking on is, not real. So what really comes from being on the charts? What's the point, right? But we really got to figure out, before we get, what's the point of being on the charts? How do you get on the charts? Like, what are record labels really doing, right? So record labels have continuously adapted creative production and business strategies to optimize performance under shifting chart rules. Song length and intro speeds were a big part. Because streaming services count a play, once a listener reaches a 30-second mark, labels and producers adapt track structure to minimize skip rates. Shorter songs would mean average track durations have dropped from roughly 4 minutes down to 2.5 to 3 minutes to maximize repeat streams within a given listening session. Then you have things like the hooks. Modern pop and hip hop arrangements often skip long instrumental intros. And that's a big thing I like doing, but it was a thing that I noticed a lot of times where like songs don't really like setting up the vibe or the beats for music anymore, right? But these intros are now not a thing, but songs are starting directly with the vocal hook or chorus within the first 5-10 seconds, right? Just to get people immediately not trying to skip. And that comes from your small attention span, really. So, multi-format radio play. This is how record labels were starting to adapt a lot of their business to the new charts and things like that. To secure the radio airplay metric of the Hot 100, major labels historically serviced alternate mixes to distinct radio formats. And this is where you get like your clean cuts, your remixes, your radio edits, and things like that. So, for example, a crossover track might receive a percussion-heavy mix for top 40 stations, alongside an acoustic version tailored for adult contemporary stations. And that could be literally the mix of the track. It's something I don't really consider, but it is something you should consider as an artist that wants to compete with this, right? Because there is a thing where if let's say a song director for a radio or a director is choosing music and things like that, if they hear one song that's like super loud and very percussive, it's not going to really blend with the show that they might have set up, or maybe the audience, and things like that. And you have to be aware of that, because something like lately, when artists are very entrepreneurial sensed or very independent in a way, we kind of operate at the beat of our own drum, and we kind of lose the ability to collaborate with different organizations and institutions like radio and stuff like that, right? So if you do want to partake in that, to get on radio and things like that, you have to consider your mix and your edits, and then of course the content and context of your music and things like that. It's a big thing that we always noticed on Breakfast Club or Hot 97. Artists would get up there and they'd have like this real raw message, and we can't play it in its raw form, so it's just is what it is. So something for you to think about, especially if you're a young musician and you don't really understand these things. That's why I'm bringing this down for you. So, and the next thing is album length and track listing strategy. In 2014, the Billboard 200 album chart introduced SEA, streaming equivalent albums, where 1,500, that's 1,500, individual track streams equals one album unit sale. Labels responded by encouraging artists to release deluxe editions and longer track lists, often 20 to 30 tracks. Since every track streamed across an album contributes to the overall standing, longer track lists generate higher total stream volume, which then would make album sales look better. So if you have an album that's like 30 songs and you all stream it twice, and then it gets to 1,500 once, and you all streamed it twice, that looks like 2 album sales, right? So it's not really that you've listened to the album twice. It's just that if you collectively get 1,500 people to just play the album once, and you do that 2 times, you've gotten 2 album sales. So 9 times out of 10, you guys are going to listen to one song on an album. You're not going to listen to, honestly, probably like 3 songs of an album. You're going to listen to a lot of songs in an album, especially if you do like an artist. So this one album unit sale can suddenly turn into like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 100, thousands and things like that very quickly. So let's look into some of the things that we might have believed about the charts and things like that, and let's see if some of it is actually true. So how many of you actually believe that? Let me know in the comments if a number 1 album means more people bought physical copies. Let me know in the comments if you believe that that's true. And the facts are, since the implementation of multi-metric tracking, which was streams, retail, and all that other stuff, an album can top the Billboard 200 through high stream counts across a 20-track release, even if physical sales, like CDs or vinyl, make up only a fraction of the total activity. So how many of you thought that a number 1 album on the chart means that people bought the album? Like they actually paid money to say, hey, I have the CD or the download. So that's actually not true. So the reality is that, as it says here, is that you can actually just stream an album, and you can actually consider that a unit sale for an album. So what else can we see here? How many of you believed radio payola is completely extinct? Like there's no way to really pay for play. Well, the facts are, while traditional pay for play cash exchanges were outlawed by federal laws in 1960, radio promotion teams historically shifted to indirect incentive structures, such as sponsored station events, exclusive artist appearances, or third-party independent promotion consultants to secure airplay. So what this will look like is when Nicki Minaj goes to the Breakfast Club, it's a big deal. When Mariah Carey goes to the Breakfast Club, it's a big deal. When Kanye West does an interview, it's a big deal, right? These are things that help promote albums and promote products and promote the business, right? That's why it's a trope, but usually the common fan goes, oh, they must have an album to promote. Well, yes, generally, yes, that's the case of why we're talking to them, right? But it's more so the occupation that they're a musician, which is why they're talking to them. But the point about radio payola being extinct comes from the fact that it doesn't look like Kanye West, Beyonce, or any of these big names we can name are just outright paying the price to be in this seat. It looks like as though they've earned it by either notoriety, status, or actual effort. Like they just, put up the numbers on the board. But if that was the case, then we would be seeing a lot of different people getting interviews, I guess you could say, at the same consistency, right? So because we don't see the same consistency, or we don't see the same, I guess you could say, this is a word we like to use in the industry, push behind a lot of different artists, we tend to think that there is some kind of organic thing happening. Like we just happen to like this person so much that they're just going to be everywhere all the time. But in reality, there's a lot of systems and strategies and relationships and things like that that help keep this thing going, which, like it's explaining here, is technically not radio payola, but it is an indirect incentive structure. That's what we're calling them today. So how many of you, I got one more here, believe that all streams are weighed equally? How many of you believe that they're all weighed equally? Let me know in the comments. Billboard, here's the facts, uses a weighted point system. Paid structure streams, which would be like the premium streaming sites, Apple Music, Spotify Premium, Tidal, I don't know what it'd be called, Pro Plus, Max, Deluxe, whatever they're calling these things, right? Those streams carry the highest weight. Ad-supported streams like Spotify Free or anywhere like YouTube Music where you're not paying for premium and things like that, those receive lower points. They count, but they don't count as much, right? But then programmed Pandora-style streams where like you have radio stations, Pandora, let's say Sirius Radio and things like that. I wonder if Sirius counts because you pay for that subscription. But Pandora, though it runs ads, we'll use that as an example. Those stream service receive the lowest factor. So now when you think about, oh man, this song plays a lot in the mall or it plays a lot in Pandora, that may be true, but it may not be accruing a lot compared to, let's say, the dedicated fan base of a highly curated artist that knows my fans pay for streaming and they're really into streaming music. Like that artist is just going to have a better advantage just because of the value of the streams that they're receiving, right? So in honor of today's show and today's topic, I wanted to give you guys that quick rundown of the Billboard here. If I had a soundboard, we'd be playing applause, right? Now that we've done that, I want to actually get into artist experiences and understanding a bit more of what it's really like to be dealing with the Billboard. And we're going to take a look at it from a few different perspectives. So let's get into our first video of the day.
Billboard magazine's Hot 100 chart has long been the benchmark for the music industry to rank its most important and impactful hits during any given time. The chart as we know it now is a unified and all-encompassing popularity chart, measured by individual metrics that is streaming, radio, airplay, and sales, both physical and digital. But Billboard was radically different from what we know it as today. Grover Cleveland was U.S. president. Coca-Cola was sold in bottles for the first time, and Carl Benz of Germany received a U.S. patent for gasoline-driven auto. In short, it was a long time ago. This was 1894, and Billboard Advertising had just published its first issue. Yes, Billboard was actually established as an advertising and bill posting service, very different from what we know it as today. It was founded by William Donaldson and James Hennigan, with the former handling the editorial and advertising, and the latter handling magazine production through his printing company. Advertising during this time was mainly done using posters, billboard, and paper, and was the company's main focus. After Hennigan's departure in 1900, because of editorial differences, Donaldson revamped the magazine's operations, including changing it from a monthly to a weekly publication, and redirecting their focus to outdoor entertainment. This began establishing Billboard's relationship with entertainers, as they often covered carnivals, fairs, and circus shows. Billboard also attempted to cover the motion picture industry in the early 1900s, but shifted their emphasis towards music amid competition from Variety magazine. During the Great Depression, radio, jukeboxes, and phonograph records were becoming very, very popular, and their manufacturers advertised heavily with Billboard.
So why do you think things got popular, or things like the jukebox and the phonograph and record players and things like that got popular? Personally, if I were to take my experience with doing this job and then seeing all the other content out there, it's a thing that connects people, right? So when we had the COVID shutdowns, everybody got online and everybody started talking, whether it was group chats. I think we had like secret social media apps that were coming out you had to be invited to and stuff like that. Discord blew up, Twitch blew up. Everybody was like online to basically do what a jukebox would do back in the Great Depression. And so what I think happened there was, because that became such a lifestyle for people, it became something to talk about. It became a thing to focus on in terms of culture. And Billboard saw that as, I guess you wouldn't say a need to fulfill, but it was like an opportunity.
The ever-changing technology helped focus even more of Billboard's editorials towards the music industry, and even led them to create a radio broadcasting station in the 1920s. Eventually, Billboard published its first hit parade chart on January 4th, 1936. Charts were...
So it looks like a hit parade was literally a chart, like a parade, a showcase of the hits of the time, and you can get it for 10 cents. That's crazy.
Compiled by surveying music retailers across the country and published weekly. By the start of the rock era in 1955, two more charts, the most played by jockeys, which was the precursor to the airplay chart.
So they have the best sellers in stores, most played in jukeboxes, which means the most, that's streaming essentially for the time. Like you go in there and you actually pick a song you want. And then most played by jockeys, that's essentially radio. That's pretty cool. And they were doing this for a long time.
And the most played in jukeboxes that rank the most played song in jukeboxes across the country were established. Jukeboxes were very popular among the youth of the time. This was regarded as the best way to determine how the younger demographic interacted with music, since many radio stations didn't add the increasingly popular rock and roll music to their rotation. Jukeboxes would translate to streaming by today's standards.
And you also got to think too, a jukebox back then was the equivalent of a DJ stand today. Like, you would get a quarter and it would just or just basically fill the entire room up with music. It probably not the entire room because of sound quality, but you get what I'm saying. Like, suddenly there's music playing when there wasn't. And so it can be a song you really, really like. It really, really moves you. It makes you really sad. It makes you really happy, whatever it was. So for people, that was like basically watching television for the first time or watching a movie.
On the November 12th edition of 1955, Billboard published a top 100 list for the first time by combining the three aspects of a single's performance. Jukebox popularity was waning during these times, and Billboard would eventually drop both the jukebox and jockey charts in favor of an all-genre singles chart that would become the flagship chart, the Billboard Hot 100. So on August 4th, 1958, on the first compilation, Poor Little Fool by Ricky Nelson became the first Hot 100 #1. Billboard was not the only music industry trade magazine and faced competition from Cashbox and Record World. Founded in...
How many of you have heard of these companies? I have not heard of these. I'm probably too young for this. But Cashbox and Record World, I think the only names that would probably last would have been Record World.
1946, Record World went under the name Music Vendor. It was a weekly magazine that was considered slightly trendier than Billboard and Cashbox, especially in its early iteration by catering to younger audiences. Not too much is documented about their demise, but it ceased publication on April 10, 1982. Cashbox was also a popular trade magazine that published charts from July 1942 through its final issue in November 1996. Cashbox was founded by George Albert as a trade publication for the vending machine industry. Their name was obtained from the manner in which the machine collected coins from its box. A few years later, the magazine began covering the popular jukebox business, which during the time weighed significantly in record sales of a particular single. Cashbox would review records for jukebox vendors, and in return, the record industry would advertise their artists with the magazine. Being the major alternative to Billboard, Cashbox regionalized its chart data by placing hit songs by city, radio station, market sales, and jukebox activity.
This is a great way to market because this is data that we don't get to see today because you got to kind of work within the industry, right? So this would help for people who are trying to DJ. This will help for people that are trying to run restaurants or places and venues that have like open public performances of music and things like that. This would be great for choosing songs for movies. This is great data if you're somebody who's in the industry. So I think a lot of the reason why we, like general public people, don't understand the charts and things like that, because this isn't valuable to us. So they show us things like numbers of streams or numbers of record sales. Like you don't really need to know what city has the best, because you're more than likely not going to pick a flight to go there or take a train to go there.
Charts were also divided by the different genres of the time. The magazine listed songs by artists that were sorted alphabetically by record label. This made it easier to track label activity on the music scene. It also featured tour news, insider gossip, and photographs that were exclusive to the magazine, with an in-depth look at singers and bands on the ascendancy, as well as those on the decline. Cashbox were largely influential in creating the bullet, an icon that represented a single's increasing progress on the chart in terms of sales and radio playtime. Record historians and some music analysts tend to believe that Cashbox represented the less affluent demographic because its charts were based on more jukebox popularity than radio. During the magazine's early history, radios were not very affordable. Many people frequented places of entertainment and interacted with a lot of jukeboxes. These places were located in inner cities, small townships, and rural communities, and unique ethnic enclaves. In this way, Cashbox is considered to represent an underdocumented communities, more so than its competitors. Cashbox's unique methodology made them a mainstay until their final issue on November 16, 1996. Cashbox was revived in 2006 with the blessings from the family of the late George Albert and exists mainly as an internet entity. The magazine does publish special print editions and features a wide array of music charts. So with the lane opening up, major changes took part during the early 90s that would change the landscape of music trade in Billboard's favor. With the burgeoning computer age and the need for more accurate figures, Billboard teamed up with information system analyst SoundScan in what would be a watershed moment in American music in 1991. Effective May 25th of that year, Billboard enacted changes to its top 200 albums chart. Prior to this revolution, Billboard had relied largely on surveys in which staff members and owners of retail outlets all over the US would report sales figures back to them. Billboard would then analyze and tabulate the results into various charts. In an era preceding the omnipresence of computers, it was the best possible method to obtain data. However, it did rely heavily on good faith, and y'all know how good faith can be. The partnership with SoundScan, which would later be acquired by Nielsen, the data information company, led to a more accurate and streamlined presentation of data. More importantly, it shed light on the fact that more hip-hop, country, metal, and alternative rock albums were being consumed than had been previously believed.
And that's important to find out, because you can actually get what I always tell you about as independent artists here is leverage, because it made the leverage for these genres, country, heavy metal, and rock and things like that, and hip hop, to come to the labels and ask for certain amounts of money, right? The reason she's not naming things like reggaeton, jazz, and orchestral, brass music is because people weren't consuming that as highly at the time. So it did tell everybody what to focus on as far as what to make, what to listen to, and what to buy.
The shift to computer-based analytics further supplanted Billboard atop the summit in regards to the industry acclaim, while most of its competition declined. Billboard has enhanced its reputation as the industry's go-to for music performance analysis by adapting to the ever-changing landscape, by adding different metrics such as paid downloads in 2005 and incorporating streaming from popular websites such as YouTube 2013, as well as Apple Music, Pandora, and Spotify in the following years. Billboard has kept up with music consumption pretty impressively. However, some challenges have been posed by streaming, such as how to weigh paid and free platforms, or how many streams of a single constitutes a sale, and how valuable is streaming versus radio or paid sales. As far as charts in the USA are concerned, Billboard has long provided valuable information for industry analysts and record companies, as well as regular chart geeks, DJs, and various music professionals. Safe to say, Billboard is over a century old and looks like it will be here a while longer. So, what do you guys think about Billboard's ascendancy to the industry's pinnacle as far as music analysis is concerned? Drop a comment.
So, that video is super dope. And I think getting a brief rundown of what Billboard does and what it represents and its history gives us a better look at how we can approach making music, right? Because a lot of times we listen to songs and be like, man, why is this rapper putting out music that's 2.5 minutes long? Why are rappers not able to do the third verse? What happened to the third verse? And so when we ask these questions, in my opinion, we act like we don't know the answer, but we can see the answer a bit more with the clarity of history, right? So now let's lean into our second video. And the second video is going to be a bit more from, I guess you can say, a manager's perspective, or somebody who's more of a record label executive. And they get to really explain to us what they think about when they're trying to navigate the charts and things like that. So let's get into it.
When you say Vic, you're talking about Victoria Monet. She was known primarily as a incredible songwriter
in the industry.
General public didn't really even know who Victoria Monet was as an artist, but that was her goal, to become an artist.
When it came to getting Victoria Monet, we went, all the blogs that I just talked about, we went to those blogs hard. But when we went to those blogs, we went with a purpose every time. So they played me Jaguar 2. And this is, and mind you, this is right after I had the company. We were with Columbia, we were doing Interscope, we were doing Atlantic, we were doing all this stuff. Me and my partners broke up. So now I'm a loan shark, lost all my clients, and I had to start from ground zero. The first artist that I get is Victoria Monet. And I was like, dang, do I take this? Like, I don't know what to do. And I listened to Jaguar 1, and I was just like, I can't believe that she dropped this and no one knows about this. And this is my introduction to D Mile. Like, I knew he did Painted, but then I looked up and I was like, oh, there's D Mile again? Like, this is a beautiful piece of art. And no one talked about her. So I was like, I'm going to work with them closely, and I'm going to start posting her as much as I can that makes sense on my page, because I wanted to be the one to be like, hey, here's the next star. Like, as a page, you want to find artists and you want to champion them. So Victoria Monet was going to be the artist I did that for Lucky, and now I was going to do it for Vic.
Okay.
Because it's that's my vibe, like Lucky, Vic, El Mean. These are like my favorite R&B artists. And with Vic, they talked about her writing. They played me some of her music. And I didn't know what to do with her at first, because I'm like, what are we going to talk about I was like, okay, we're going to talk about Ariana Grande. And then we're going to basically be like, I can't believe a black girl is behind Ariana Grande's biggest hits, which was a shock to me.
And I do remember that narrative online.
That was a huge one. We ran that up. We ran it, and then the internet just started posting it
Okay.
I ran it on my page first.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then from my page,
I didn't know that.
From my page, it was one of those things that didn't go viral, but every month someone would post it. And it just, because what happens is people see you post a good post, they save it, and they're like, I need content. They go through their saves, and then they post it. So
on their faceless pages.
On their face. So it was one of those things that just, it was like a snowball. So everyone knows, before she drops Jaguar 2, everyone in the R&B spaces is getting hip to her because of her writing for Ariana Grande.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to show you guys why that works. He explained that in a matter-of-fact kind of way, right? And I'm pretty sure in the middle of this interview, they don't have time for him to break down what I'm about to tell you. But essentially, the reason that works, and this is more so for the newer artists and people who don't understand, the reason that works is because having had the resume to work with an artist who is on the charts allows for people to trust your brand when you go out on your own to then compete for the chart spot, right? So it means that, okay, if you're able to write for someone else and then get on the charts, then we can see what you do for yourself. And that part right there, most people don't really get, because we assume, almost everybody is writing the music that they're making independently with no help. So there's that part you have to get out of your head. And then the other part is that a lot of people think that getting on the charts is about songwriting. And as you can see, he's explaining how the curiosity, I guess you can say, attention and hype that goes around a songwriter for a charting artist is now stepping out on their own, creates curiosity. So then when this product does drop, whether you like it, love it, or just curious, we get the play, we get the stream, and we get the attention. That is the fuel of the music industry today. Now, the song, it being great, is for after the fact, and of course for the listeners. But the point here is that his job is to get people to look at you.
And in the post, I also put some of her Jaguar stuff, and I also put the fact that she works with D-Mile, who works with Lucky Day. So I'm putting all these threads together before she drops.
Sick.
The thing that actually put her head up above water was we went to Soul Bloom. I got invited to Soul Bloom to shoot content, and she was one of the shows there. I think Jesse was there that year.
Possibly.
Yeah, she was. That's the first time I heard Jesse, and I was blown away. So I heard her. I was like, cool. When we saw her live, so now we're gonna talk about it. But Victoria Monet was performing, and I was in the front, and I was, because I was in the media area.
Who invited you to
Soul Bloom?
Soul Bloom invited you.
Soul Bloom invited me.
Okay.
And I just happened to be working with Victoria. It was like stars aligning. And so I'm in the front row. They come out, and she has their dance squad. I think it's just 3 people, but I was immediately blown away. I've been talking to them for weeks. No one told me she could dance. I had no idea she could dance. I pulled my phone out. I still have this phone to this day. And I stood there for the entire set. My arms were about to fall off. I recorded the entire show on my phone. The part that I clipped down was the sum cut challenge.
Before you get into that, and we're not going to forget that, why are you not putting your phone down?
Because I didn't want to miss a second, because I knew that I knew that we were going to go viral from this moment, because not a single R&B artist that was popping at the time could dance like that. And
that's key. This is going to be our next show about being multi-talented as an artist, knowing multiple instruments and things like that. It's 2 things that's key here. It's having the talent to be able to dance and sing and then write, but him being able to see that, him being able to say like, oh snap, this is something that other artists don't have.
If there's one thing people love is a performer, especially, I mean, we talked about earlier, R&B is something you experience. That's why you have to go to the show. That's why you don't need very many monthly listeners to do a tour. Mm-hmm. So I knew I was experiencing something that the world needed to experience. Mm-hmm. And the fans that were there were like diehard fans. She had her diehards.
Yeah.
But no one knew how talented she was. No one had a clue. And I was shocked, took the video. I was literally like, on my way home, like, we're gonna break this shit. Like, I literally was like, we got it. Like, we have the moment. I wasn't sure what I was gonna do, and then I knew. So I took that video, and it's the Sum Cut song, where it's a dance break. It's not even her song.
Yeah.
It was the Sum Cut dance break. And I remember having a talk with the manager, and she was like, and this is a fair question. She's like, well, why wouldn't we push the music? I go, don't push the music. Don't push the music. If you push the music, people are going to know you're pushing the music. They're going to know it's paid. They're going to know it's an ad. But if you push the viral, like I wasn't viral at the time, but if you push the fact that she is doing this this breakdown at this ability, people have never seen her. The moment you saw her dancing, you're just like, oh, this is a star. Mm-hmm. And so we took that moment, didn't put anything about her music. It was just like Victoria Monet tore the stage up at Soul Bloom. Mm-hmm. That little video, we posted on my page, posted on the other page, and then it just started catching. And there was a comment on my post, or one of the posts, and it literally said, you need to do a choreography breakdown to this song.
Okay. It just keeps going and going because this is kind of his job, but he's taking the fuel of the attention and just turning it into more and more things, right? But in a nutshell, what he's done is basically he recorded her show and then found a breakdown of her dancing and then posted that. And then her question was, why not post the music? And smartly enough, he was like, people will catch on that you're trying to sell music, and that's not actually going to be very attractive to most people that are trying to just immerse themselves in your music and things like that. And knowing that, you got to have experience knowing that, right? And so he used that to then create this kind of, I guess, attention grabbing household moment, meaning like you want to get people scrolling on their phones, whether it's late at night, in the middle, before they go to bed, or whether it's during their lunch break or whatever, but scrolling their phones, trying to either figure out who this is, why I should watch it, what is going on. And it also creates this thing where they can now be a part of it, where somebody was saying you should do a breakdown for it as far as the choreography. Now you can get even more of an opportunity to get people talking and things like that. The only thing they have to navigate now is to just funnel all this attention into something that, is valuable to the brand. This can be a problem if you have an artist that doesn't necessarily have like a foundation in music, like things for the music fan. Outside of that, you pretty much are doing what you're supposed to do in social media marketing.
The screenshot, I sent it to them. I'm like, do this. They do it because it's a brilliant idea from someone else. No, that's another thing. My ideas don't come from me. I just watch. If you work in digital marketing, and this needs to be clipped down, and if you work in digital marketing and you don't read every comment under every post, you're not doing your job. Mm-hmm. Now, go back, quit digital marketing. If they leave their job and they go, I'm done with that, and that's okay. That's fine, but you're not going to be great at your job.
Right.
If you're not reading comments. Comments is where everything begins and ends. And my best ideas come from comments.
So usually when you see me on social media, like if you ever see me in person, I'm reading comments. And like there's a joke about like what kind of person likes to scroll on their phone. Some people like to just scroll and go to each video. It's funny, not funny, scroll, right? I read the comments for generally the same reason he just explained. And I do it more so because of the entrepreneurial mindset. But there is value in reading comments to understand what people are thinking. And there is a sentiment that a lot of people have that because it's on the internet, it's not real, or these comments aren't people's real honest opinions. And if you were to base a lot of the data that we get from whether it's streams to who you guys follow to what you guys are actually support, the comments usually show us generally an accurate depiction of that. So that's something that I'm glad he actually said, because it validates a lot of the things that I usually see and say when I talk about comments and things like that. But what you've noticed, though, is in order for him to actually get her on the charts and things like that, in order to try and strategize about getting on the charts, there's a lot of things they had to pay attention to that had very little to do with the album and music, right? It was relationships. It was getting the fans to notice you. It was understanding that you needed a lot of different skills in terms of whether it's musical skills or just networking skills and things like that. And then when it comes to reading the comments, you got to be able to act fast, like them be able to do the dancing that they can do at their level allow them the ability to break it down, probably simple enough for people who don't know how to dance to join in, which makes it easier for people to digest your music and connect with you and things like that, or even, you know, want to digest your music and connect with you. So let's get into our last clip of the day, and then I will get you guys off. This is a bit of a late stream, so I don't got to do my little lunch joke, but the point here on this last clip, once I get it to load up properly for me, there we go. This one is actually going to show us a wee bit more about how things actually work when you're actually considering doing this. I want to say, like, as an independent artist, like, there is no huge backing, there's no fan base that's waiting to support you and things like that. Like, if you're just in the room, you're like somebody like me, you got a home studio, you got your instruments, and you want to actually get on the charts, how would that actually work?
What's up guys, my name is Eric Bravo and I make music under my stage name Bravo. I've been making music since I was 14, but I took a slight detour in my music career where I developed a cartoon short with Nickelodeon while simultaneously working on Google's self-driving car project. With time being spent indoors, being confined to one room one Saturday night, my music journey began once again as I decided to open Logic Pro X on my laptop. Little did I know I was about to embark on a lifelong goal of mine, which is to release an album. After a ton of researching, planning, and selling, my debut album, Need to Know, charted on the Billboard Top Current Album Sales chart at number 91. It landed right between Post Malone and Ariana Grande. Now, let me explain how I did that. First, I'm going to be talking about the inspiration to chart. I happened to come across CD Baby's blog. If you don't know, CD Baby is journey. So, understanding the rules. According to Tyke T and Shannon Curtis article, I knew I had to reach around 750 album sales in the first week for a chance to land on the Billboard Heat Seeker chart. Taking into account when the articles were written and the ever-changing rules from Billboard, I decided to set my first week sale goal a little higher to 1,000 albums. There's honestly not a lot of information online about the current rules for Billboard, and what is out there contains dated information. As of August 2020, these are the rules that helped me chart on Billboard charts. So, rules and guidelines. Here are some helpful rules and guidelines regarding Billboard. Fans are allowed to purchase up to 4 copies of your album per credit card. This can speed the process of hitting your first week goals by 4 times if you have a loyal fan base or if you have a ton of great friends. All pre-order sales will count in addition to your first week sales, and this is important because whatever is sold in the pre-order period will count as if it's sold in your first week. And you can
Okay, so do you see why a lot of artists push pre-orders? A lot of the pre-orders, and pre-orders usually are albums you haven't heard or heard very little of. So you're really buying the hype of the album and the brand and the sentimental value of the album. But you can do that up to 4 times on the same credit card. So one person, let's say you have 6 credit cards, can do 4 purchases per credit card, and that's one person. So I'm just picking a random, scenario, but you can easily see how reaching your first sale goals or getting on the charts can be done. The problem you run into is that we can probably see the trajectory. Like, we can see, oh, clearly you're telling people to buy 4 times and things like that. Like, we can see all that. But yes, if you guys didn't know that, that's how that works. So that's why when you at least have conversations with me about like the Billboard charts or who got a lot of streams and stuff, I personally don't believe or care a lot of it, because I want to see the facts. I want to see the flow and things like that. I want to know how things look. But if they tell you these things, it changes how you feel about it, right? If you enjoy hamburgers and pizza and like all that stuff, and you start to find out how all that stuff is made, it kind of changes what you're purchasing, how you're purchasing, and all that stuff.
Have up to a 6-month pre-order period. Release singles count towards your album sales as well, and you must get a UPC and register your album to Nielsen. And if you want to learn how to do this, let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to upload a video. Also have to register each release single's ISRC code to Nielsen as well. The lowest price your album can be is $3.49. Your album or EP must have at least 4 songs to be considered. In order to qualify for a specific genre, half of that album has to be that genre. For example, if you're doing a jazz album, you have some hip hop, half of that album must be jazz in order to be considered for the jazz Billboard charts.
And that's why you'll see a lot of times a pop album will have a hip hop track on there, because it's strategically placed there to get the hip hop audience to then tap into the sound. And if you're a smart artist, even the pop sound will have traces of the quote unquote marketable track. You know, if it's a hip hop track that you're trying to market, the rest of that album kind of has a little bit of that flavored season throughout.
Billboard counts sales from Friday through Thursday, so try to release on a Friday. Billboard refreshes the charts every Tuesday, the week after your album is released.
So how many of you knew about the release schedule? This is why you see a lot of your favorite albums come out on the day that they come out.
September 2020, bundling merch has been discontinued. As of January 2020, most of the Billboard charts are now consumption-based charts. Consumption-based charts versus pure album sales chart. As of 2020, Billboard switched most of their charts from a pure album sales chart to a consumption-based chart. A pure album sales chart includes album sales only, no streams considered. Album sales are categorized as albums purchased digitally or physically. A consumption-based chart includes album sales and two other metrics: streams from video or audio and track sales. Most of the information out there regarding charting on Billboard explains how artists should aim for the heat seeker chart, since you only need 750 album sales the first week to chart. This is not true anymore. They're referring to this chart as an album sales chart, but as of January 2020, it's now a consumption-based chart. This new rule makes it harder for indie artists to chart on a heat seeker chart without the help of a record label, a placement on the Spotify editorial playlist, or a viral success of a song on TikTok. So picking a chart.
And the viral success of a song on TikTok is what we've seen with the Victoria Monet example. I guess you could say, manager at that time that was talking knew that, and he understood that, and then actually executed on it. Do you see how the things that get you on the chart have little to do with how well you play your instrument?
To aim for. By going through this experience, I would not recommend aiming for the heat seeker chart as an independent artist. To chart on the heat seeker now, your first week streams have to be massive, and without a big fan base, this is difficult to accomplish. If you still do want to pursue a pure album sales chart, there are two Billboard charts you can aim for. Top current album sales chart, which is the one I charted on, includes new albums that are less than 18 months old, and there's 100 spots. There's also the current album sales chart, which includes new and category albums. An album is considered a category when an album has been out for more than 18 months. In this chart, you're competing with classics such as Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. For this one, there's also 100 spots. From my understanding, album sales charts will eventually phase out, and I barely made the top current album sales chart, selling 1,000 albums my first week. If you like to make a dent in either of the charts that I just mentioned, you have to sell at least 1,100 or 1,500 pure album sales first week. And with
So pure album sales, if you want to get on a chart, just using this example, that's not you guys getting 1,500 people to spend $10 anymore, because people don't spend $10 for one album anymore. What this really means is you'll need to get, if you wanted each person to have one album in this example, you'll need 1,500 people to play your album songs 1,500 times to count as one sale for that person. So that's what that really looks like. That number is huge. So he's showing you just in the basis of what the formula looks like, but this is why when you see us getting like a fraction of a penny, or you see artists saying like, man, I got 1 million streams and I only got like $400, this is why. It's because a lot of people don't understand the actual math that comes with what we're looking at.
With this first week numbers, you're aiming towards a lower to mid chart placement. Your chances of landing top of these charts are slim, since you're competing with popular artists such as Taylor Swift, Drake, Kendrick Lamar. So how did I chart on Billboard? Now that you understand how the rules are played and how often they change, here's how I managed to land on the Billboard top current album sales chart. First is pre-orders. Pre-orders play a huge role when it comes to securing a spot on the Billboard chart. Billboard allows all pre-order sales you make before your album release to count in addition to your first week sales. You can have up to a 6-month pre-order period, and this means with a 6-month period, if you choose to sell for that long, all of the sales that you make will count towards your first week sales as well. I was a bit impatient to wait 6 months, so I decided to give myself a 6-week pre-order period. The next thing is picking a platform. It really came down to 2 platforms for me, and those were iTunes or Bandcamp. This was a hard decision to make. I wanted to choose iTunes in hopes of securing a spot on the iTunes chart as well, but it was a bit too risky if my ultimate goal was to chart on Billboard, and I decided to go with Bandcamp because of the following reasons. First is less clicks to pre-order. When I tried to pre-order my own album on iTunes, it instead took me to Apple Music. Apple is making it harder for customers to buy and find music on iTunes, and I didn't want to lose any potential sales with this misdirection. Live sale updates is another reason why I went with Bandcamp. One great feature that Bandcamp has that iTunes doesn't is its live sales updates. I can see a true count of how many pre-orders have been sold and who pre-ordered my album instantly. There's no way of tracking pre-orders on iTunes, and you're essentially going in blind. Another reason is that Bandcamp is easy to price. Bandcamp allows you to have full control of your album's price on the dashboard. You can change the price without any delays. I learned the lowest I could price my album is $3.49, so I priced it at an even $3.50 with ease. And if I wanted to, I could up that to $10 the next day and then bring it back down to $3.50. It's so easy with Bandcamp. There are many barriers trying to change pricing on iTunes that makes it super difficult. Also, one cool thing about Bandcamp is that you can continue to work on your album as you're selling pre-orders. I was still not done with my album when I started to sell pre-orders, and with Bandcamp, I was able to get the ball rolling with pre-orders while I continue to work on my album. With iTunes, there's less flexibility as you have to turn in your album a few weeks before your release date. With a click of a button, Bandcamp allows you to release your project instantly. So
I think a lot of what he's explaining, it works if you're of the build the plane while it's flying mentality. But all in all, I think you should generally have your album done. I think you should have all your marketing in order. And if you are going to do a campaign, you should kind of read the room. 6 months seems like a long time if you want to keep people's attention. But if you're able to actually plan out 6 months to where it's actually going to be a huge drop even once the album releases, I think that'd be a pretty cool idea, even if it's 3 months. The other thing I noticed too about what he's talking about is that you got to really find a way to make people want to click to buy that album. Nowadays, like I said, you're competing with just the haphazard attention of a hamster today. So you're not dealing with people who are looking to, you watching this stream, you're probably giving the most attention that you've ever given in your day. So imagine trying to get you to spend $10 on an album of music when you can spend that $10 on a Kava bowl, on a McDonald's meal, on anything. It could be a monthly subscription to OnlyFans. It can be a lot of different things you could use that $10 for, right? And whatever you come up with your head for that $10, it has to make sense to be, or the option of buying my music has to make sense as the better option. So that's the thing you have to deal with as, I guess you can say, a person trying to deal with the sales part of everything, which is why you'll see a lot of artists, they'll try to drop and then promote, or they'll try to promote for the drop instead of using pre-sales or pre-orders. And so what it's looking like, the strategy to get on the charts is you need a lot of notoriety, control the notoriety, but then you also have to be able to execute on the, I guess you can say, criticism and reactions you get from getting on the charts or getting towards getting on the charts. Because if you get on the charts and then you start getting these phone calls and you can't actually book any gigs, well, that sucks. But if you also are trying to get on the charts and you don't know how to book any gigs, well, that sucks too. So you want to be able to do it.
How did I do it? I decided to release Need to Know on August 7th, 2020. I gave myself 4 months to finish the album in a 6-week pre-sale period. With Bandcamp, being able to track sales was essential, and I was able to see how many pre-orders I needed left to hit my goal of 1,000 sales first week. And I always knew exactly where I was with the sales. My plan was to release 4 singles leading up to the August release, essentially releasing a single each month to give my fans something as they wait for Need to Know to drop. And with the singles, my Spotify listeners reached 34,000 monthly listeners, and my singles racked up a total of 80k streams on Spotify and Apple Music. And if you still want to aim for a heat seeker chart, just note that you need more than 80k streams and 1,000 pure album sales the first week. The results. So the weekend before I was going to find out if I charted or not, a Billboard representative reached out to me via email saying that Need to Know was flagged to possibly land on the following charts: hip hop, R&B, rap, heat seeker, and independent charts. And I was super happy. You know, the representative made me send him a copy of my album, the cover art, and artist photo, and I had a good feeling that I was gonna make it. Tuesday comes along, my album charted on a completely different chart. Need to Know charted on number 91 on the current album sales chart, and this chart wasn't even flagged. It turns out that Billboard will flag genre charts and will put them into their system so they can research your consumption numbers to see if you can make it on any of the flagged genre consumption charts. This goes to show that if you do want to make it on Billboard, you should keep updated with the rules and get a clear understanding of how entering each chart works to make sure you're playing the game right. If you pursue my method of securing 1,052 pure album sales the first week, just make sure that Billboard still has a top current album sales chart and it's still considered a pure album sales base chart. It'll be devastating if you put in all this hard work only to find out that Billboard doesn't have a pure album sales chart anymore. But I hope my story helps you on your Billboard journey, and if you do make it, congratulations, go get your Billboard plaque. I found Jukebox, Platinum, and Rights Media to be reputable plaque sellers. If you guys found this helpful, be sure to leave a like down below. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comment section below as well.
Dope. And I liked it. I like his breakdown. A pretty cool dude. It seemed a little chill for hip hop, but I like it. Pretty cool. So, do you plan on getting on the charts? If so, why and how? And what are the regulations that you're most worried about? Is it album sales? Is it perhaps the combination of consumption versus pure album sales? What is the thing that you're most worried about? So, like I said, that's all I got for you guys today. We're going to do a quick, easy show today. And I want to see you guys in the comments letting me know what you think of this conversation and how you're actually going to tackle the charts going into 2027, because I think we got like 4 more months left of this. So I will see you guys in the next episode. This was Musician Talks with DameSmiff.